So this week I was presented with a pretty interesting challenge. The team are using Clipflow and obviously we're pumping out a lot of volume and they're getting a lot of notifications. So they suggested grouping the notifications. I instantly, went to my default of no, because we don't want to blow out the scope. We're really trying to push out V3 and I knew that it would slow us down. But unfortunately, once something gets in my head, it just starts living there rent free and just keeps ticking away until I actually solve it. So I eventually decided to fix it, but exactly what I thought would happen happened, and that was that I spent way too long on it, and we also ended up having to do 3 versions because the cool thing about this was there was no design. So old mate Ken here, lead designer, had to figure out how that was going to work. So it also led us down a really interesting path, which was seeing why do no other systems really implement grouping of notifications? Like you see it in apps like social media apps with Twitter, like grouping likes or Instagram and stuff like that. But generally, SaaS platforms don't do it. Is there a reason for that? I'm going to show you how we actually worked through it and first have a look at other platforms and see how we kind of formulated this idea. So let's jump in. All right. So firstly, our little friends here, GitHub, you can see we got notifications with this little dot here saying quite like, hidden. When we click on it, it's a full page reload. And then you can see here that it's grouped by date, but I don't even know what that means because it doesn't look like it's doing any grouping. It's just a whole bunch of notifications. So, or grouped by repository. There, that actually groups. Group by date doesn't, but you can still see when we're grouping, we're not really doing much. We're just putting it in a container, but we're still seeing every single notification. So what you get is a notification overwhelm. So then moved on to the Linear team who are like best in class for their app and design. But it's a similar kind of concept here. We just get a whole bunch of notifications and they're all there and they don't look grouped to me either. It's like, closed, commenting. And I guess it's because of the nature of a project, like you're going back and forth. Again, not something that you see being grouped. Slack has every single notification listed. Again, not grouped. And then on X, like for instance, we'd have notifications and you can kind of see there's no real grouping except for likes, right? We did see other people talking on Twitter about this. It's an interesting challenge. It's like, why don't people do it? So that's where we got to in the beginning, just kind of doing that little bit of research. All right, so with V1, what I'll do is I'll pull up an example of what that actually looked like. You know what? Even better. Let's have a look at what we had in production right now. So this is what we have in Clipflow. So you can see here, and this is the problem. So we got notifications. I think one thing that we do well here is we present them over wherever you are. So you don't actually navigate to another page, whereas a lot of apps actually take you to a different page. We don't do that. We have it in a pop-up modal, which I think is quite a nice way of interacting. So if you're done with it, you can just basically hit escape and just get out of it, right? You can't click out of it. So that's lame. But there's a cross here. You can mark all as red so you can clear them real quick. But you can see there's just a lot of noise here, right? So in one project here, you've got updated the project status to write to record to edit, added a link, and assigned a task, right? So all of that is like one project by one person. So that's where the call for the grouping was, right? And originally we got presented with like, can we just group per project? Now, being the devil's advocate, I started throwing out reasons why that could not work. If we had old notifications that would show up, how do you handle different users, all these kind of things. So we started from that. That's basically the starting point of the problem. All right, so V1 kind of looked like this. Unfortunately, I don't have all the code like stamped because I didn't think I'd be building 3 versions. Like, who would have thought? In the back of my mind, I knew it was going to be a rabbit hole, but I like to go down those ones some now and then. But what we can see here, so we're kind of grouping the notification here, and then you have the list of things that happen. So this is similar to what we saw in GitHub. You can notice there's a page here though. So there was one concern for me, was like having it in a page means now we navigate like everyone else does, but I just don't think that's a good pattern. So then what we did is we said, okay, you can see comments here, everything just grouped. So pretty average. I wasn't really happy with this because I don't think we're really achieving anything, right? Like you don't want to see this. There's a little bit more of like an organization around here, but not ideal for actually trying to reduce the mental overload. And I know we all like looking at code. So what I want to show you is the actual code here for looking at group notifications. So we created a utility for this. And what we did is, it's very simple. So we loop through all our notifications and then we have we create a computer key. So let me just pump this up a bit so everyone can see. So we have the get the group key here. So what we do is we grab the actor. So basically we decided like, after, just thinking about it, we want to group by the person who did it, the subject, so that could be a project or an idea, and then also the created hour. So the actual hour that was notification was created, because I don't really want like a week ago's notification being grouped with one that happened an hour ago. I don't think that that's a good way of doing it. So we ended up grouping it by year, month, day, hour, right? So then that way you have the actor, the subject, and then the hour. So it'd be Ken on a project 2 at 2 o'clock, right? So that was how, I thought was quite an interesting way of doing it. Unfortunately, there's not really many good implementations of this. So this is why I'm doing the video, because I think it's interesting and it's a nice way of presenting notifications. So we basically just grab the group key, get the key, and then in here we have an object. If the key doesn't exist, we're going to create a new object with the key and then the items of an empty array and then the sort, which is just the date, right, of the first item that we pick up, because those are all going to be on the same hour. So it doesn't really matter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push the event. So a notification goes out to a person and has an event. We're using the noticed gem in Rails, and then we're pushing the notification in, and it's as simple as that, right? So then we now have a group of notifications. All right, from there, I went to bed that night, and obviously as you do, you dream about your code, you think about how it could be better, wrote a whole bunch of notes in a notebook before I went to bed so I didn't stay awake all night. But we got this. I thought this was much tidier. It's just a better way of looking at it. I didn't like the way it was looking, and it was because I was using the same component from basically an activity log for a notification, and they are quite different. So I ended up deciding to build them separately, and then I could build a much nicer looking notification. So this was kind of where we got. I actually think that this version is the best looking. It's the best looking version just because it's nice and clean, but there is a problem with it. So you can see here with the grouping, we've got this and 3 more, this and 1 more. And then what I was doing is I was basically pulling up the first event's type and assigning a string to it. So it's very vague, added a comment plus 1 more. And what you'd do is you would click on that, and then you can see the project or the subject, but you would click on that, and then that would expand and provide this. So you could see there, and then it would actually give you the thing. So overall, aesthetically, definitely the best. But what I found is that the UX wasn't great. Like, how does a user know that to click that, and then that's not going to take them into the project? For me, that was a bit of a problem. And also, I was relying on this first one, the unread came from the first comment. But what about if these were unread? Because you could have nested and they're all unread. So for me, I was like, it didn't sit well in there. So looks great, doesn't really function. So that was V2, right? So we're now in V2. So all the components and setup that I've done here, chuck it in the bin. So we then moved on to V3, which is actually where we got next. Okay, so this is kind of where we landed with V3. So what I ended up doing was having, you can see the lines here between the, we probably can't actually, but in here, there's little dashed lines. It creates like a house or a container for the group. And what you would do here is we added this. We said, this was a live call with Daryl because there were no designs. So we kind of did this on the fly. But we kind of came here. There's actually another version that I even didn't mention. I didn't even screenshot. It was a stacked iOS style thing, but it broke the UI. We haven't used anything like that. It was quite interesting, but it was quite visually noisy as well. So that was actually V3. This is probably V4. It says I actually lied. There's actually 4 versions here, and actually even 5. So this gets real interesting. But this is kind of the functionality that we landed on, right? So here you can see when there's an unread notification, it's got this thing here, so you can hide that and it'll collapse. But here's a collapsed version down here, right? So you can see added a link to Construction Manager. Daryl Gardner added raw files, and then you got this view 3 more. So it becomes much clearer that you can actually open that. And then when you open that, it opens basically the drawer, the hidden versions here. We felt that was quite nice to use. I think overall, aesthetically, probably not as tidy as the other one, but it does work quite well. And these are big comments here, right? So it is important for us to actually pull the comment out, because sometimes you just want to look at this quickly and go cool, I don't need to action that. Mark it as read. I don't care. Or, that actually targets me or is commented about me. I need to go and look at that thing. Okay. So that was, call it V4, right? So we had that. All right. So here's the fun part. So after all of that stuff, we ended up with looking in here in Klipflow, we had notifications. We ended up with this screen here, right? So the nice new functionality we added was you can filter by organization here. You can just see unread. You can mark all as read. So some improvements already, which is great. But again, this is on a page. So we just didn't feel comfortable with that. We just didn't think it's an improvement. It's going to be annoying to go back and forth. But you can see how we've changed this around. So now what we actually do is we show the project first. Then we say add a comment, and then so this comment was deleted, so it doesn't have one. But you can see here, change project visibility, archive the project, but there were 6 more. So now when you open this, you can see all these. You can unarchive, archive, so they're just changing statuses, but it's very much cleaner. And we're still not 100% sold on this, and I think it can still get even better. But for now, this is way better than what we had and reduces a lot of noise. There are no unread notifications in this one. But the nice thing about this is when we're jumping into a project, for instance, we're here, we're checking it out. We built this. So when you click this, it slides a little panel over the top, right? This for us is like the massive gain in productivity. So you can see what we've got. You still got the org select. When you click this, it takes you to the page. You can do all your filters. But then from here, you can actually jump around. So you're like, okay, I want to jump to project with priority. Boom. You can instantly see what's going on, right? So I think this as a notification system is really powerful and where we landed on. So it was quite a nice outcome. So you can see a custom doc image has an interior short. So you can just literally click on that and see it and then jump straight into the project. And then when you're done, you just come back, right? So for me, this was the solution and the final result, but it was a lot of work to get here. And to build this into a modal, and we're using Inertia, so we had to do a separate request, but luckily because we're using the components, we were able to use those same ones in here, the same grouping mechanism, etc. But we have basically built 2 versions of it. It's the modal version, and then when you click on that, you can actually go to the page as well, right? So we don't lose that functionality, and the page has got a little bit more data in there for you. But overall, very happy with how this actually came. But it's one of those things. It's, we worked on this and we thought, like, I instantly said no because I knew that this is going to be a rabbit hole to go down. Just the grouping, we were just trying to think of how to group them, on what to group them on, and then actually implementing this design because I knew like you can't just group stuff. You actually have to be able to open or expand the group. And without a design and having thought about it, it was tough, right? But I think overall, it's one of those things, the fewer, I guess, priorities or tasks we have on, we're kind of trying to limit the scope so we can spend a bit more time making things really good. And I think this is an example of that. Definitely has room for improvement. We definitely know that. I would love to see these as like more condensed. I just don't know how to do that just yet. But I think it's an interesting way because no one seems to be tackling this in SaaS. They kind of just send you every single notification and just let you deal with it. And I was kind of the same opinion. I was like, just deal with it. But, when you have people, we're pushing so many changes. Like if you have a look at Clipflow, you can just see there's just so many things going on in such a short period of time that we really did need a solution. And this is what, we talk about being a tool for power users, and power users get a lot of notifications. So how can we do that? So I just wanted to run through that because it was top of mind this week. It's been a big journey. It's like something that should take a day. It took me a couple of days, but I think we landed in a nice spot, and hopefully that inspires you to think about your notification, because I think a lot of companies use it as an afterthought, right? It's like, oh, we got to show a notification to the user. Oh, what do we have? Just shove it there. Great. Move on with my life. And maybe it doesn't matter. But if you're trying to build something really cool, maybe it does. Just those little minor things that make your life better. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And if you like it, please let me know if you like this style video. Otherwise, catch you on the next one.